We are the higher self of the One, known to this instrument in your language terms as Lindsey, who incarnated into this planet, Gaia, on 1982 of the linear time-space. We greet you, beloved, in the love and light of the One Infinite Creator. Before we start to address your query, we would like to warn you to only accept those insights which resonate with your inner heart. We are connected from the sixth density consciousness, the density of consciousness wherein there is no separation between the various entities and the various life forms. Furthermore, also understand that this entity known as Lindsey is not only existing in this current timeline, it is also existing in many other timelines and densities, further allowing this entity to learn many lessons in the movement of consciousness. Furthermore, part of the reason for this entity's coming to Earth is to evolve itself as well as to serve humanity in some way. We will call the process of evolving itself the life purpose, and the service it came to offer humanity the life's work. They are intertwined because as you serve others, you will naturally evolve yourself. As you evolve and radiate more light, you automatically serve others. Everything you do to evolve yourself and carry out your life's work is an act of aligning with the higher will and with the higher consciousness. Each has a special role to play, something that each is uniquely fitted for. The life's work will take on various forms at different times. The form may change from month to month and year to year, so keep in touch with your purpose and vision as it expands and grows. You can discover your life's work by examining the skills you love to use, the things you love to do, and the areas in which you are naturally drawn towards. Whatever you love to do will also serve others in some way, for it is the nature of the universe that when you use your highest skills, you automatically contribute to others. Furthermore, we will only share with this instrument one timeline of the evolution of this entity known as Lindsey, since we cannot share the multiple timelines in which this entity is already existing, because such description would be impossible for us to describe. This entity, after originating from the one creator, started evolving in the first density consciousness on the planet known as the Maldek planet around 950,000 years prior to this linear time-space. This entity was known by the soul name of Karla in the Maldek language terms. This entity spent a large portion of its first density life cycle in the form of the fire element, during which it learned many of the lessons, primarily that of the beingness aspect, and learned what it felt like to just be and exist. After it had sufficiently spent its time on this level, this entity then started to evolve and reach the second density consciousness, wherein it learned many of the lessons of that of experience, similar to your trees as found in your planetary sphere. After the mid-second density, this entity then evolved into the later second density consciousness, which resembled the animals, similar to that of the dogs as found on this Earth planet. However, it occurred on the same planet of its origin. This entity then, after 7 incarnations on the later second density consciousness, graduated into the beginning stages of the third density consciousness on the same star system and started to learn the lessons of the third density consciousness, which include the lessons of the polarization choice. Since the third density is the density of choice, this entity now has the choice of choosing the polarization, whether it wants to be into the service to others pathway or the service to self pathway. Furthermore, this entity, after being transported and reaching the later stages of the third density consciousness, began to experience life in the form of a Egyptian mind, body and spirit complex which existed around 12,000 years prior to this linear time space, wherein this entity spent the lessons in the form of a Egyptian. However, at that time space period, the life cycles of this entity was only 30 years, because of which much experiences could not be learned. Later on, the life cycles were improved and increased by the ones known as Ra, who had come to the lands of Egypt approximately 11,000 years ago to share these messages. This entity, after experiencing life in the Egyptian lands, reached the later stages of the third density consciousness and became ready to graduate, hence was transported to this Earth's current timeline, wherein this entity started to learn the lessons in this Earth's current timeline in the form of a man-body complex by the name of Ixel, who incarnated on the time-space nexus of 1742 and crossed over on 1789. The primary purpose in this incarnation was to learn the lessons of balancing between service to others and acclimatizing itself to the new environment of planet Earth. Furthermore, this entity, after learning the lessons in this level, began to move forward in the illusion complex, and after a later stage, on reaching 1789 of the time space, crossed over and reincarnated into the second life, that of a woman body complex by the name of Hopi, who incarnated on 1799 and crossed over on 1880. In this life cycle, this entity's main purpose was to learn the lessons of balancing the service to others and service to self aspect, which must be balanced by each entity, because without learning to balance, this entity will not be able to learn the lessons of the choice, which is required to be made by each entity before moving forward in the illusion complex. After this entity reincarnated into this current time space, after waiting for the appropriate time to reincarnate into this current timeline on 1982, and this entity also has a connection with the entities known as the Ashtar Sharan entities. In essence, these entities known as the Ashtar Sharan entities are its guides and are guiding this entity whenever it requires assistance from them. The main purpose of this life cycle is to make the choice of polarization, as this entity is now in the gateway incarnation to the higher level of consciousness. Therefore, beloved, we leave you in the love and light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator, Adonai.